My name's Abhishek Agarwal. I'm a program manager lead on the Office 365 information protection team. Joining me is my awesome colleague, Ross Adams, principal PM on the same team. And we'll be joined later on the talk by Doug, superstar Doug from Dartmouth College, and he'll talk about his experience with ATP in his environment. The topic for today's session is anti-phishing protection across the entire Office 365 stack, starting from EOP, including advanced threat protection, and some of the new capabilities that's available in the E5 product with things like Threat Explorer and Cloud App Security. A couple of logistics. If you have questions, there are mics around the room, so please walk up to the mic. If you can't, just shout the question. We'll repeat the question for those who are trying to watch this over a recording. All right, so with that, let's get started. So as I mentioned, we are from the Office 365 information protection team, and it offers a comprehensive array of tools and products that enables any customer in any part of the world of any size to easily manage their security and compliance posture. And if you had a chance to attend other sessions in the security and compliance track throughout the week, you would have noticed these focus areas emerge. You would have seen how we are using cloud intelligence to surface actionable insights that admins and end users are able to use to quickly complete the security and compliance tasks and get more productive. And you would have also seen how we are extending our security and compliance using signals, using intelligence, not only across Office 365, but across other products in the Microsoft 365 family. Obviously, the focus of our session today is threat protection, and in the context of threat protection, specifically phishing scenarios. And I hope you will see, as we talk through the features that we are building, how the same three themes across intelligence, across productivity, and cross-product signal sharing stands out as we talk about the scenarios we bring to light over the next few weeks and few months. So for those who are security professionals in the room, I think this is an obvious slide. If you have been watching the news cycle over the last few weeks, or even this week, this is kind of an obvious statement. Cybersecurity is no longer an IT issue, it is a boardroom issue. The amount of attacks that's happening, there's some stats on the slide here, about 300,000 new malware being created every day, the cost of every incident going up. So the requirement to secure the digital asset, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud, is critical. And if you double-click a little further into the stats, the category called phishing, in the context of cyber threats that we see, phishing is also a category that is increasingly on the rise. One of the statistics from FBI, it calls out that business email compromise-related economic loss adds up to more than $5 billion over the last 3 years. Within the last year, there have been more than 250,000 unique phishing campaigns that have targeted over 600 brands. And just this year, in the last 6 months, we have seen over 800 million phishing mails through our own systems. Now, clearly, this is an attack vector that's evolving, and this needs a differentiated approach to make sure we are evolving our defense strategies as these attacks come in. And that's where Microsoft is uniquely positioned to essentially get ahead of some of these attacks. You would have seen this story also narrated throughout our security and compliance tracks. Kind of three pillars on which we are building our solutions. First of all is a rich set of signals that we have across Microsoft 365. If you take in all the mail flow we see in Office 365, combine that with the devices that are running Windows 10, and combine that with other signals we see in properties like Bing and AD, that's a rich set of data and signals that we have. We're taking all that data and signal and using that to power rich machine learning and AI algorithms and heuristic algorithms to come up with new detection technologies to catch some of these new attack vectors. And then we're integrating that intelligence across our product lines, from client experiences all the way to services, so that you can easily use them to protect, detect, and respond to these emerging attacks. Being able to protect them not only during your mail flow, but post-delivery, being able to detect it both by enabling the end user and also the admin, and being able to respond through actionable insights and rich visibility. So let me take a few minutes to go into a little bit more depth into what's the phish landscape of today. When we look at the attacks that's happening in the ecosystem today, here's the spectrum in which we can spread them around. On the very left is basic scams that target the end user, typically consumers. They can be simple mails that are asking for financial information, or a new variation that's been prevalent these days is IT support scam-based attacks. To the right, if you go to the right of that, there's attacks that are going after brand phishing. So they're typically going after consumer credential accounts for things like peer-to-peer payment systems, or social media accounts, or even your e-commerce accounts. The goal there is to not only gain information to whatever is available as part of that service, but also to do credential harvesting. Because typically end users end up sharing the same credentials, the same login password across multiple sites. So if you gain access to one of the sites, you're able to lateral it and use it on other sites. And then if you go to the further right of that spectrum, the attack is beginning to get more and more targeted, and so is the economic damage associated with them. So we are seeing attacks that are targeting a specific organization, typically using something that spoofs or looks like their IT, or also going after some popular SaaS applications on top of which the enterprise would have implemented, or the organization would have implemented their business workflows. The goal there is to gain access to the organization's credentials, and then use that to lateral inside the organization, and then further get access to the data and get it out of the organization. And to the extreme right are super targeted attacks, also known as spear phishing, where the attacker is going after maybe a specific individual inside your organization, or maybe a specific role inside the organization, and trying to do more sophisticated attacks like a W-2 fraud, a wire fraud, or compromise a high-value, a high-profile account to get access to really privileged information, and then use that for other activities. So if you break this down, these attacks are powered by a combination of different lures or attack vectors. It starts from very simple text lures, so email with some text context that's trying to con the victim, to the classical domain spoof scenario, where you might be, an email might look like it came from your organization, either back into your organization or to a partner that you're working with. Or if you attended Jason's session, mails that contain attachments which have phishing content in it, or the straightforward mails which have a link that point to a credential phishing site. If you move towards the right, there's more sophisticated attacks that we are seeing out there, where a user in your organization might be impersonated, or the entire domain of your organization might be impersonated. And then another attack that became prominent earlier this year was around fake applications that kind of impersonate a popular SaaS application, and they send you an email which requests an OAuth permission for that app, and by getting conned, the victim implicitly ends up giving permissions for their account and the data, even without having shared the credentials with the attacker. So these are some examples of attacks that we are seeing. Obviously, this is not all, and the attackers are continuously evolving. And what we need to do is essentially, as we look at these attacks inside Office 365, we are building a stack that is able to also evolve as these attack patterns evolve, and provide a multi-layered defensive strategy, and enable you to do, protect, detect, and respond to these attacks. So as I mentioned, the way we look at the problem is, how can we protect you from these attacks as the mail comes in? But if you're not able to do that, how do we make sure we are able to protect it if we get a delayed signal after the mail gets delivered, and also enable you and your end users with the right set of tools so you can also detect and respond to it across post-delivery as well. So we'll have Ross come up here in a minute and get into the depth of this multi-layer strategy, everything what we have from edge protection to spoof protection, some of the features that we have in ATP, to then more capabilities in Security and Compliance Center around Threat Explorer and other capabilities to enable you to then protect, detect, and respond to this attack. So with that, I'll hand it over to Ross.
Cheers. Thanks. Thanks, Abhishek. So let's dive into a little bit more detail about how we protect. If you do have questions as I go through this, feel free to interrupt me and ask. I might put you off, if I'm going to talk about it later, I'll put you off to another slide, but feel free to ask questions as we go through. So firstly, protection. And really, there's kind of commodity protection, if you will. So the first layers that come through are really talking about trying to protect against that commodity set of attacks. So obviously, we block on the edge, right? We have a whole bunch of information here that we source from around that tells us, hey, this mail is just not good. Just drop it. Don't even bother trying to accept it. Drop it out and get rid of it. That allows us to filter out a whole bunch of malicious content as it comes through. Once we've gone through that, we're really now looking at how can we authenticate the mail. Is the mail authenticated? Now, a lot of phishing mail is authenticated, but there's a bulk of it that's not as well. So there's a bunch of standards in this area, particularly around SPF, DMARC, DKIM. While we're on the subject, who has gone through the process of setting up DMARC? Show of hands. All right, now leave your hand in the air if you've managed to get to a reject policy. That was unfortunate. But understand, right? So a reject policy is really good, but it is difficult to get to. So one of the things we've actually done here is we've sort of two actions that have come through. One is implicit DMARC, right? So what we call for intra-org mail, we've got an implicit way of figuring out, yeah, this mail probably should have gone through. So what we're able to do with that is if you're somebody sending, say, from Contoso, one of your domains, to Fabricam, also one of your domains within the same organization, we can look at that and say, while there's no DMARC information here to tell us to reject the message, we can tell this is probably misconfigured IT and we can allow that message, or we can reject that message where we know it's not true. And we've seen a bunch of attacks here where we've effectively knocked that on the head, right? And we're seeing people move to different ways of dealing with that. We also, as a note there, just with DKIM signatures, how many of you notice that as you send mail out of Office 365, we've been signing that mail using the default on Microsoft.com setup? Now, while that doesn't actually give us sort of DMARC, what it does do is provide some level of understanding for us about where the message came from and whether that message has any level of trust. So you'll see in a little minute, I'm going to do an experiment, fish for a bit, and it doesn't actually pass any of this, and you'll see some warnings that are coming through. Of course, once you get through and you've figured out that, okay, it passed auth and we're not going to reject it, or we've implicitly figured out that it should be allowed in the organization, we have a bunch of AV engines that we run. So we run multiple engines, obviously, running our own and others in order to be able to catch sort of commodity malware that we know about. And if you saw Jason's session earlier, you would have noticed the way that ATP, Windows Defender ATP, and Office 365, the ATP products work together in order to provide a layer of protection there with signal sharing between them. So this is really a plus for customers because these layers run for all Office 365 customers. So as we move out of sort of the commodity area, we start getting into, as we move through the stack, we get into the more detailed areas of the way that we deal with that. So again, detonation chambers. So the ability to be able to take malicious content and actually click on it or follow the link allows us in our safe attachments features of ATP or link content detonation within safe links to really be able to get in there and see, is this content malicious? Jason has a great session that talks about all of these sorts of things from a fairly detailed perspective. But the other thing we do for EOP-based customers is we look at mail flow. And as mail comes through, we try and provide some sort of heuristic clustering around that so that we can identify potential potentially bad content or malicious content, and we send that off to our detonation chambers as well. What that allows us to do is effectively build up a comprehensive reputational SOAR, right? So now we can block mail much quicker. We know that the message was good or we know the message was bad, so we can now block that message much faster through here as we build up that reputational data. And to supplement that data, we have a bunch of static feeds, effectively, where we have lists of information. Static's not the right word. Lists of information that we gather from, not only from ourselves, from first-party sources, across the Office 365 ecosystem, and across the Microsoft ecosystem, but we also grab from third parties. And this all feeds into effectively what we'll call a reputational block. So we're taking all that content, figuring out what's going on in there, and blocking that reputation. Also within the detonation chamber, we're pulling URLs out and checking them against that reputational score as well. So it allows us to get a comprehensive view of what's going on. So we talked a little bit about the strength of the signal, okay? So marketing slide. Marketing's half of the slide, if you will. But there's a whole bunch of signal that's coming into the system, right? And if you look at it, there's 400 billion emails. It's a lot of mail. 450 billion user authentications. 1 billion Windows devices hanging around. A couple of hundred services giving us information. There's a lot of data there, right? And data is a little bit useless. What you need to be able to do is take that and build intelligence. As Abhishek said, we take that intelligence and we're really pushing it into that security graph across clients and services. So I wanted to give you a good example of how we use this information to help with the phishing problem. So here, and I picked a phishing mail. This is a legitimate phishing mail. I picked this particular phishing mail because it looks very much like the original, right? So what you see here is effectively an email. It says it's from eBay. It says it's an invoice. You should click it. You should pay now, right? So what we actually have here is we have a bunch of machine learning and AI that jumps in there, looks at the visible elements of that, right? So off those signals, it's able to learn what does phishing look like? What do these mail messages look like? It's also looking for, sort of telltale signs. If we see, we see email messages where they try and break the system, it's got things like password reset. So you look for keyword password reset. You'll never find it in this email because it's password, white on white A, reset, white on white A, account, right? So it all ends up looking like one word to a machine. So we look for these types of chafing within the HTML as well. So one model is looking at this, trying to analyze the content of the message, compare it to what it knows from these signals that have come in to be able to figure out whether it thinks it's phishing or not. There's another model that also comes into play and looks at all the links in there, right? So the link on the payment now. And in this particular message, it's a good message. It has a mix of links. And we see this very common within the phishing messages. Links to the good sites. And what they'll do is effectively take that existing template, just change the one link that they want, the pay now link in this case, or the download button. These were the only two links that they changed. All the others are all legitimate. They all go off to eBay. But if you click on these two links, you're going to get phished. Okay? So this is all very visible information. Machines can look at it. But there's also a whole bunch of information behind the message, the headers, if you will. So we've all seen the headers. There's a lot of information that we actually stick in the headers as the message passes through the system. So we have a lot of information for the models to work from. In fact, in the ATP setup here, we even know whether the user that's getting the message tends to receive a lot of fish. We also know if the sender tends to send fish, right? This information is really powerful because now we can say, if, for example, Abhishek gets lots of fish, and I, unfortunately, am tagged as sending a lot of fish, then it's more likely that Abhishek's going to get a fish. Where if Abhishek gets no fish, and I send fish, he's probably less probability of him getting fish. He's not a targeted user. So our models understand at this level of data what's going on in the system across Office 365 and across those signal sources and can give us a good understanding of whether this particular message, what's the probability of this message being fish. Okay, so what happens now? We've got a message that arrived in the inbox. And we see this a lot, the bait and switch, right? We see it come through our detonation chambers. It's a 404, site getting ready, these types of links, right? But at the time you click on it, right, I know detonation chambers are there, so I'm sending the mail through. But at time of click, I want to provide that level of protection. So that's what Safe Links offers. So within ATP, the Safe Links offers this level of protection. We effectively wrap these URLs. And at the time of click, it gives us the ability to say, has something changed on this URL? Do we have more reputational data that indicates this URL might be bad? There's two big advantages here. One is it's client agnostic, and the other is it's location agnostic, right? So a lot of the times I talk to customers who put blocks on place on their blue codes or their proxies or firewalls. It works great if you're inside the corporate boundary. People can get mail everywhere. People, IMAP, POP clients, they'll get it off OA, they'll have it on their phone. these things, it's difficult, right? Unless you're forcing everyone through a VPN into the corporate environment, it's very difficult to make sure that they're going through that right path to be able to block. What SafeLinks is doing is effectively by wrapping that URL, it doesn't matter how they got that message. They can get it on a POP client, IMAP, doesn't matter. They'll get the right experience, right? We'll get them to be able to say, hey, this link's been updated, and we'll block them if it's a malicious link. Also, if you're using the Office clients, so as messages flow through the Office clients, people put attachments, URL attachments in there. In fact, there was a session that showed how we do this within the Teams site now. As they send those messages through, they arrive into the Office clients, and we've integrated into the Office clients. All you need to do is make sure you're signed in with your Office 365 account, and as you click on that, the Office clients will reach back through into the SafeLink service to say, is this link good, right? So we get the protection across those clients as well. Also, as we learn certain information, we attempt to purge it, right? So where we can, we want to go back into those mailboxes and move it out, junk that message, get it out of the inbox. So we have the 0-hour auto purge, which allows us to really clean out the messages that are not, not good, if you will, malicious. So what's new in this area? So some of these things we have coming very soon, and some of them are a little bit further out. But certainly the integration with Windows 10 here, Windows 10 gives us in the Edge Smart Screen protection. We have lots and lots of devices out there, lots of users reporting phishing information or malicious content in links. And we're able to take that information back and use it within Mailflow and SafeLinks in order to block. Obviously, there's sharing of information here that allows us to get the best experience for everybody. And we're also enhancing our detonation chambers. So allow them to detect phishing PDFs. So there's a couple of the examples down there. Effectively, one that's just asking for information. There's nothing malicious in that. You can click on it all day, nothing wrong with it. Or similarly, the other is not malicious. It's not trying to do anything bad to your machine. But if you were to follow the link, it would take you to a phishing site. So really getting enhancements in these detonation chambers to be able to detect this type of content. There's also SafeLink for internal messages. How many have had a compromised? Yeah. Thank you. How many people have had a internal user compromised who then sends phish to internal users? Yeah, just a few, just a few. So the idea behind this is that by being able to wrap those links on internal messages, when they click on those links, you're able to block those links. We're able to detect that they're malicious, allow you guys to put the list in, and then be able to block those messages so that you don't allow the proliferation of hacking within the accounts. We're also, as I said before, with the implicit demarc that we do for intra-org domains, we're also in the process of building this for external domains, right? So this is really being able to say, does this sender from this location, is this good message? Do they send this way normally? Is this a normal pattern for this organization, for this particular sender and domain, or is it abnormal? And where it's normal, we'll be able to say, great, let it in. Where it's abnormal, we'll be able to turn it off. So this is really sort of expanding out that intra-org protection across the Office 365 ecosystem so that we can really provide that same sort of protection as it comes through. We think that one will have a big impact on the way that we deal with authentication within the service and help those people who have not yet got to a reject policy to get an additional benefit. So domain impersonation, as Abhishek said, we're seeing more of this. We see domain impersonation coming through predominantly because they can't impersonate or do exact copies of the domain, so they're trying to impersonate it in particular ways. And there's a couple of ways they do that, right? They'll use, in my examples here, I've got contoso.com. I've used a couple of different characters in here, Unicode characters to replace the O and the C. We see things like contoso with the O's being zeros. We see I's become ones. We see dashes put in there. We see account-contoso or contoso-account. All of these sorts of patterns will start to detect and be able to tell you that it's an impersonation. Similarly, we also see people where they embed, if you will, within the display name of the email address, contoso account, contoso.com. and then the actual sender of the email becomes the second part of that. Again, in these cases, both of these, once we've normalized this, once we've gone through our process of effectively detecting whether we think it's an impersonation, these would come back to say they are an exact match. So even the first one and the second one, where they seem to be quite different than Contoso, these will come back as exact matches. User impersonation. How many have had a CFO to CEO type message in their organization? Almost everybody. Fantastic. So we've got two things we're doing here with user impersonation. And really, the first one's pretty straightforward. Give me a list. Just give me a list of names that you want me to protect. Right? I need to know who's the CEO. What's their name? What's their email address? And you'll be able to put in also what's their name and what's their email address outside the organization. So if they do use a personal account, you can protect against spoofing or impersonation of that account as well. But we're also building into here user-level intelligence. What we want to do here is effectively be able to build out the graph of an individual user. That allows me to figure out, that Abhishek and I have a strong relationship. He sends mail to me, I send mail back to him. We have a strong relationship, okay? I might get a bunch of messages that come in, I never respond to them. Weaker relationship, right? It might also be the very first message I get, and we know that a lot of phishing messages is the first message you get. So by looking at the interaction, the information that's coming through for a particular individual, we can build out who they work with, what sort of relationship they have with that, when somebody new enters that circle, and is that somebody new impersonating an existing contact. So it allows us then to say, protect the CEO, got him, no problem, but what about me? What about the lateral movement, if you're in fill session, the jack, if you will. So this is really being able to sort of get that intelligence that we can build from all of this signal to be able to say, hey, this is something different. For example, here, you don't often get mail from. All right, I'll show you this in an example. People often ask why I put the email in uppercase. Is there anybody can think of why the email might be in uppercase? You've seen this where I need goldfish to throw at people. All right, so there's a good reason for it. If you look at the very first item in my domain list, contoso.com, there's a Greek O that looks exactly like an O in Contoso. I didn't use it in here because wanted to show a visual difference. But when I convert it to uppercase, it will never convert to uppercase. It'll always remain lower. So this is a way that we can also provide for the end user, hey, it visually looks identical. But when I convert it to uppercase, you'll see this kind of cameling that goes through the name to help you sort of identify this doesn't look real. It doesn't look, why does it look like this, right? So that's the reason we're putting the email address in uppercase, okay? All right, so I'm going to wake up my PC, and then we will roll through a few demos, if I can type my PIN in correctly. All right, let's switch over. Which number am I? 8. One more. Okay. So I'm going to do two things here. While that machine is logging in, because I have to send it from my corporate machine, I've got two messages prepared here. One is a secure document. Very interesting. It's a secure document. I'll show you what it looks like, just so you know. It's actually the one we had on the screen before. And as you can see, opens fine, nothing wrong with it, no malware detected. But if you look at it, you've received a secure document. We see DocuSign, we see SharePoint, we see a whole bunch of different ways, different lures, if you will, of how people want to do this. And then there's a link. So limited text, logo, link. In fact, as an interesting point, we've actually seen the logo in one particular case. It was 1,600 images of a line, just a single line. All right. But if you put them all together, they made Office 365. It was very well done, actually. But individually, single images, 1 pixel high, so long, right? But put together, it looks like a Office 365 logo. This is things that we're trying to detect, or they're trying to break the chambers, but it's things that we're actually looking for. Okay, so I've got that one. I'm going to hit send on that puppy. And then I've got the lottery. I've won the lottery. How much did I win? I can't remember now. What was my winnings? All I have to do is give them some number, and I'll get $820,000. I'm happy to forward this to anybody in the audience if you want to fill it in. All I have to do is fill in some very personal information, and they'll they'll give me some money in my bank account. All right, again, nothing particularly malicious in this message. It's just a standard lottery one. So I'm going to send that off. Now, in my tenant, I have ATP configured. I've got detonation enabled. So these messages are going to go through ATP. They're going to get detonated, and they're going to roll through. A little hard to see here, but effectively what I've got is a message here. I'm going to send a mail. I'm going to use PowerShell. I've actually pre-filled in my credentials, so my Microsoft.com account. And if you look carefully, you can see here I'm spoofing the HR address. So this is the visible from. All right, the mail from will be me, of course, but the visible from will be HR, because, you know, HR, we've got to complete our survey. You've seen a couple of demos of this around. You obviously, phishing guys sharing his demos. So complete your survey, and you can see I'm just going to send it straight through, straight through the Microsoft.com endpoint. So everything should be good. Okay. So hit the send button on there. Now let's have a look at my mail client and see if it's behaving itself. Oh, there we go. I've got the lottery message already, and I've got the HR one. Taking a little longer for my other guy to come through. But you can see here it's basically, and in my case I have it stripping off the attachment and delivering the message. Not a recommended configuration. Generally we would say if the attachment was bad, you don't want to send a message. We see people respond to these saying, hey, something went wrong with your attachment. Can you send it again? So generally, the best thing to do here is to get rid of the message altogether. But you can see here it's told me it's malware. If I preview it, it tells me it's a Trojan of some description. Okay, and then you can see my HR one. Now, in earlier demos, it wasn't actually tipping it with the sender has failed our audit. So this is part of the implicit DMARC coming through. All right. This is unusual for Microsoft people to send through this particular IP, and we're actually starting to trigger this off. So this is really, you'll see this more as it comes through, but you can also see that I got the tip on this message, effectively saying, hey, you've got HR, this is unusual. And if I look at my archive, I tricked it here because I sent one earlier that was from HR, right, my actual HR account. So I sent this through saying, hey, admin, we've updated stuff, just any old message would do. And now when it comes in, it is actually telling me both parts of this have failed. Now, because I was a little sneaky, I replaced the Fabricam survey link, and we see this a lot as well, where it says one thing and actually does something completely different. If you look at the bottom of the screen there, it actually goes to a different location. And if I click on that, while I wait for my other one to come through, you can see that the website's been classified as malicious, and I've been blocked from going any further. All right. Now, my policy is to not allow people to click through. You can allow people to click through. We'll give you information if they do. All right. But generally speaking, not allowing to click through is a good thing. Okay. And I don't seem to have my other little guy yet. Let's just hit the refresh button. He was being problematic earlier today because demo gods are not shining on me. Still not through. But I will show you one that I sent earlier because I put one in here earlier. Oh, there we go. We don't need that one. Here's one that I put in earlier. So effectively, same thing in this case, telling me it's malware. Okay. So really, this is just a pretty simple view of what's going on. It's important to note here that there were some other sessions where we talked about, particularly Jason's session, where we talked about how this engine is being used across a bunch of services. So we're getting the same level of protection across these services as we move forward. Let's shoot back to here, pick up my little guy. Okay, so there was a few things that are coming through there. A lot of this intelligent client tipping. How many people have something that tags a mail that says it came from outside their organization? Most of you, okay. How many find that that eventually works and then the users start to ignore it? Yeah, okay. We understand that, right? If I keep telling somebody to be careful, eventually they give up. right? Be careful, be careful, be careful. Ah, yeah, I gotcha. Mum told me when I was trying to drive the car, be careful, be careful. Anyway, I digress. So it comes through a lot. What we want to really do here is use the strength of signals to be able to tell users more appropriately when something is different, all right? So there's a couple of items here. One is saying, hey, this particular message, the one at the top, I'm going to try the laser pointer. Oh, look at that, that's very green. Up here is saying, effectively, hey, this message was part of a phishing scam, right? Now, you can take these out of your inboxes. If you haven't yet configured phishing messages to go to quarantine, recommended approach is just get them out of there. We see people clicking on links in these. Even though we tell them it's phishing, they're still clicking. Quarantine's a good thing. If you're unsure how to get quarantine set up, let me know. I'm happy to show you after the session. The other one here, as you can see down the bottom here, the sender failed our fraud. Fraud detection systems. This is the implicit demarc that we've got going, right? And you can see the same thing happened with my HR one, right? We're really starting now to want to push the authentication envelope higher and higher. As the more authentication comes through, the easier it is for us to be able to tell you, hey, this message is not as trustworthy as others. Get rid of the, if you will, get rid of the black and white nature we have in your inbox today and move to a more grey setup where your users are able to discern more about this information. Something that's quite new is, and will this be interesting? Okay, over here, you'll see there's a question mark. All right. So in this case, because I failed authentication, in fact, there was no authentication, what we'll actually do is start putting, instead of putting in the standard icons that you see with the initials, or Outlook would sometimes actually even pull the message, if you had the same account, actually pull that information from the directory and show a picture, which is even worse. What we're doing now is we've worked with that team in order to be able to say, hey, if you fail authentication, put the question mark. Let's give the user a visual indicator that says this message didn't pass. It is not, the Bank of America. It is not your HR department. All right. And then again, we've got the tip in there. It's a fantastic pointer. The tip here that gives us information about, hey, this is some sort of impersonation. A, it's a first message, and B, it's an impersonation. Right? So what we're trying to do here is get to a point where the end user is able to discern more information and be notified more intelligently about what is happening in the system, as opposed to sort of being repeatedly told, hey, this is over and over again, this is something to be cautious with. From a safe links perspective, we've had lots of feedback about the way we wrap a URL. Okay, the text might change a little bit here, but today when you hover over a URL, you get to see the full wrapped URL. It's a fantastic URL, but a little hard to read. And we've all educated our users, hover over the URL and see where it goes, right? Unfortunately, most users can't read that, okay? What we've been doing is working with the Outlook team to effectively provide a view of the world so that you can see what the unwrapped link was, okay? Making it easier for them to say, oh, okay, this link says, this email says it's from my HR system, but it's got me going off to some website in Russia. Probably not a good thing, okay? So we're trying to make it easier for end users and for you guys to be able to say, hey, the education we've given you around hovering over a link, seeing where it goes, is much easier for them to work out. So moving on now, let's change gears a little bit. Let's talk about how we detect and respond to this sort of stuff. So firstly, we've got a new report message plugin, okay? So you can go into Outlook today, you can report as junk. It's very difficult to report as phish. You can do it in OWA in the consumer side, but it's difficult. This new report message plugin, it's available today. It's in the store, so you can deploy it easily to a single user or across your organization. Recommendation here is across your organization. It'll line up an icon inside Outlook and inside OWA that allows you to report a message, okay? And from that report message, you can say, I'll give you a quick look at it in a second. From that report message, you can actually see now, hey, let's report this as phish. So I'll just shoot back to my demo quickly. So we flip over here. And you can see here I've got a button, right, that says report message. That's what it looks like. I'm going to take my HR one. I'm going to click here. I'm going to say, hey, this is phishing, okay? And it'll go away, it'll work on it, and it'll say, hey, this is phishing, and I say, yep, go ahead and report that, please, okay? And when I do that, it says, great, it's reported, all right? And we learn from that. Now, as I said before, when we were talking about our ML models and the way that they actually discern, hey, does Abhishek get a lot of fish? Does Ross get a lot of fish? How do we know that? Well, we know that from a bunch of information we get about the way the user acts, but we also get it from the submissions of the user. So having your users report information, particularly your CEO, allows us to discern that they're under attack and allows us to get our models to better react to messages that come through and gives us a better view of it, okay? The other thing we do, which there was an earlier session that walked through this, is we can report on those. You can get a view into who's submitting messages to you. You can see what they're submitting. So this being able to get this view into what's going on in your organization is important as well. Who's really under attack? Who's reporting fish? Who's reporting spam? What sort of fish are they reporting? And then take action, okay? Hey, this one, somebody keeps, lots of people are reporting this. I want to block this IP. I'm just going to make sure that never comes into my organization again, okay? So by being able to report this information through, you can get these visibility into what's happening within your organization. Okay. There's also, how many people are familiar with Threat Explorer? This is Threat Explorer and part of E5. Excellent. So Phil did a great session about some of the enhancements that are coming through here, just before this one actually. But we've added fish in here. And we've done a lot of work in here to actually put fish in here and deal with URLs. Now, most phishing is URLs, right? They're generally that. We do see attachments where there's a HTML attachment, which is a form. Just fill out my form and hit send, please. We see a lot of that through. So we've started logging all the URLs through, providing them across to the Explorer so you can get that view of what's going on in the Threat Explorer. And you can see here, even if you're an ATP customer, you'll get a similar type of information to be able to say, hey, what were the URLs in here? What action can I take on those URLs? So if you're not familiar, there's a URL, there's a way, if there is some delay in getting reputational data, then it is possible for you to go along and to create your own, effectively, block list. All right? How many people are familiar with the Safe Links block list? Perfect. How many people were unfamiliar with it? A couple. Excellent. Okay, so we've achieved some goal today. So basically what you can do with this is you can say, hey, I've got a URL and I want it blocked. All right, this is your block list. This is your tenant level block list. What it allows us to do is really, when a user clicks on that, we check our data and we check your data. If your data says block the list, we block it. Okay. Sure. I can go back a slide. Why? Sorry, the question was?
Yeah, these URLs will be blocked in email messages in Office 2016 and Windows. Why is it separated like that?
Oh, why do we, sorry, so the question is, why do we have it separated out to say, we'll block these messages in Office and Windows? So today, we don't actually block on this list in Mailflow, okay? So what we actually do is we block at time of click. So as I said before, SafeLinks is integrated in the Office clients. So when we say Windows here, we really are talking browsers, or the ability, that when a user clicks on that, so if they go to a browser and anywhere that happens, that'll happen, right? So Windows is kind of the superset of browsers, if you will. But obviously any browser that you click on any operating system would effectively be blocked. And then again, when you're in the clients are making that call and we're checking both sides. Does that answer that question? So the question is, do we take note of the block lists that different tenants put in? It's a good question. And the answer is complicated. People put interesting things in their block list, like Facebook. But if you wanted to really be nasty, you could put something like, I don't know, Microsoft. Name a service you don't like, put it in your block list. So there's a little bit of machine learning that's going on to help us understand what's happening with block lists. So the real answer is today, no. but it is definitely something that's being investigated. It's not as straightforward as it would seem, and what we don't want is people to game us, and by effectively causing that block across. Okay. So within the E5 suite there, or as an add-on, you can get the Office 365 Cloud Access, Cloud Application Security. It's a good piece of software. It allows you to do a bunch of different things. It allows you to report on suspicious user activity. So this is helping us to detect, hey, Abhishek's account got compromised, and all of a sudden he logged in from the wrong place. Let's make sure we get that information. You get a bunch of different ways that people's accounts can be compromised. So one is phishing, obviously, but as we've seen in the press, everybody lots of large organizations are being compromised, and users tend to use the same password or the same email and password, even worse, but they tend to share that password around. So we see a lot of compromise where, it was a compromise of one site and they spray that across every other service they can think of to try and come in. All right? This allows you to get through both. Additionally, as Abhishek mentioned, we're seeing author type attacks. So these are attacks where I don't actually need to steal your credential. I don't even take you to a spoof site. I take you to the real, authentic site. You enter your credentials. You do MFA. You do it all. But you give me a key to your data. Right? And we've seen it in both ways. We've seen it where they do nasty things like send a whole bunch of email to other people to try and compromise them and clean up your address book for you. Or we've seen it where they simply harvest. They're not trying to do any malicious. They're trying to fly under the radar. They're just trying to harvest out, hey, these are known accounts. These are known relationships that come through. So CAS gets you a view into that. Who in my, which users have subscribed to which services. And by knowing that information, you can go in there and block it. This app, what is this rogue app? Why is it in here? I'm going to block that, and I can see who's actually associated with that app. All right. The other common thing, I get into the system and I create mail flow rules. Right? Let's just have all the CEO's mail sent to outside the organization so I can do what I want to do with it. It's much easier, makes my life easier. I don't have to hack into his mailbox. It's much simpler. Right? So being able to get alerts on these types of actions is really important. Right? So this is all part of, if you will, the holistic view of being able to detect these messages as they come through the system. And then last but not least, MFA. How many people have been able to work through the hoops of IT, user experience, et cetera, to get MFA enabled in their organization? Quite a few. That's good. That's good. Certainly, MFA is a good thing, right? Multi-factor authentication, it's painful for users. Enabling it for users outside the corporate environment, if they want to get into the environment, not so painful. But it provides a whole bunch of protection. Most attackers are going to be outside your environment. They can't get onto the corporate network. So enabling MFA and saying, hey, if you want to use your services outside, you've got to use MFA to get in. It's a reasonable compromise between security and protection. Right? And as I said, it's not just the fact that you've got accounts coming through. You've got people using that same password out in other areas. Okay. It really is, it's something crucial to look at as far as getting a holistic view of security within your org. The last but not least, how many people have a DLP policy set up in their organization? Okay. So we see a lot of whaling, spear phishing, whaling, whatever you want to call it, doesn't really matter. The W2 attack. The W2 attack has a time frame. It's always around the same time of the year, just around April, as we're starting to get the tax season come into full swing. And I want to know everybody's W2, please. Right? Being able to create a DLP policy allows you to get that extra level of protection in there that says, hey, if I'm able to send information outside the organization, should I really be sending all the credit cards, sending all the W2s? I should really have some sort of policy that says I'm going to block that. All right? So DLP policies are great for helping you protect information leakage, right? It's a good way of being able to just get that extra level of protection should somebody fall for something, as simple as, hey, I had to use my Gmail address. Can you send me this data anyway? Even with the tipping we do, you know, telling them, hey, this is an impersonation, I still believe that some people are going to fall down this path. And then there's finally educating new users. This is just again in Phil's session just before this one. Stu walked through sort of the attack simulation where you're able to sort of craft up your own sort of phishing emails, send them out to your users and test. Okay, helps you understand what to do with those users. Helps you, you know, this user needs MFA, right? This type of information, very useful. If you missed it, have a look at Phil's session on just before this one, and there's a list at the end, and you'll see them through. So there's a set of best practices, okay? So I covered some of them already, but there's like 6 things that you should do, and you can do these today, all right? You really need to go back and enable safe links, ATP, safe links, safe attachments, for all of your users, okay? I know a lot of people who run it in a pilot, and they're, hey, my CEO got attacked, and, you know, this got through, and it's like, yep, but ATP blocked it. Why is, you've got licenses, why are you not? Well, you know, we're rolling through. Just accelerate that process. If you want to, the minimal disruption to end users, just have the content detonated before it arrives in their mailboxes. Roll out preview later. Right? It's really important to make sure all the users are protected. Tune the phishing models. So all models, all AI or all machine learned models are probability, right? They're going to give us a probability, is this phish or not? Okay. Now we haven't put public documentation yet together for this, but if you send us a mail after the session, I can certainly help you get more information about how to do this. But what we can do here is we can effectively take that probability where the engine says, I've got pretty medium confidence that this is phish. Okay? For your execs who have a very low tolerance for phish, you can say, if you think it's a medium confidence phish, take an action like it was very high confidence phish. So you can adjust that threshold. Right? It's a great way of being able to sort of provide an extra level of protection for your you know, high-value users, if you will. Now, there is some false positives, so we give our models some leeway. We allow them to make some mistakes, you know, generally say, well, I think this is phish when, you know, perhaps it wasn't. What we generally see in that area, though, is it's mainly spam. It's bad mail that people don't want anyway. Right? So this is a pretty low risk. You can turn it on for your organization or for at least for those exec users and start coming through. ETRs, exchange transport rules. Great things. Unfortunately, they're a bit like a hammer and you're trying to crack an egg. All right? What we see in a lot of organizations, more so in certain sectors than others, we see a lot of IP and domain allows, where we effectively set the spam confidence level to -1. Skip spam, okay? Now, it sounds good, says skip spam, but it's actually skipping a whole bunch of other protections as well. So when you do these things, you should go back and review all of these rules. I've seen rules that allow the entire Gmail address range to be allowed into the organization with no filtering. This clearly not a particularly good rule. Okay, but let's go back, find those rules, combine things together. Ideally, you want the domain, the IP, and authentication to pass. 3 things, not 1, right? Generally speaking, we've gotten a lot better at dealing with spam. Our FP rates are pretty good. I would suggest that we should review whether we even need that ETR anymore, okay? Let's try and get rid of those ETRs. Let's get rid of them, or let's make them very tight, specific to particular domains that pass authentication and come from the correct IP. Definitely install that user in reporting add-on. You can do that today. You can deploy it to your organization. You can deploy it to you know, on a per user basis if need be. But that's going to start to get you insights into what's happening in your organization. But it also allows us, from an ATP perspective, to better tune the models for the users who get phished. Right? This is you know, a lot more than just being able to tell us where we got something wrong, which is something we learn from. But we also learn more information here. It's critically important. particularly for those users who are, unlikely to report. All right. It is also possible to get a copy of those mails so you can see what people are pushing through. It's important. So I said before, MFA. All right. Particularly from external access, let's just get it on. Microsoft went through the pain of it. We got attacked. We had some compromise. We had people outside the organization. Everyone said, that's perfect, MFA. If you're outside of the corporate boundary, you are using MFA. And we've been through that pain, and we've gone through that. And there's a lot of excitement now about the way that conditional access is working within Azure AD to help with that, the burden or the ways in which you can get MFA enabled. And then finally, and probably not least, is get to P = reject. Get that policy to a reject setup. Now, we're going to help. There's no two ways about it. We are going to help. But it's your brand as well, right? Particularly if you're dealing with a large customer base, even if you're just dealing with suppliers, you're going to have these messages going out. They're possibly not all within Office 365 ecosystem. You want to make sure that you can protect that. Get that policy to reject. We'll take the right action on it. We're going to help. We're going to try and help you get there, try and build the knowledge and intelligence around that. But getting to a reject policy is a big thing. Okay, so I've been speaking for a while now, but where does the rubber hit the road? What we want to do here is we've got Doug with us, and he is going to give us a run through on his experience through ATP and what he's found.
Hi, so I'm Doug from Dartmouth College. I am our principal Office 365 architect, and I too, like many of you in here, have experienced phished accounts, and it's not fun. How many of you are ATP customers and have enabled safe links and safe attachments right now? Awesome.
Excellent.
So Dartmouth College is an Ivy League institution. We were founded in 1769, just a little bit of background. We actually have a really long history in computing. So in 1964, actually the first time-sharing system, the Dartmouth time-sharing system was run and executed 2 basic programs, also founded at Dartmouth, simultaneously. We actually released our own Blitzmail email client and backend service in 1988, and that was put to use for a very long time up until 2012 when we moved on to Microsoft Online Services. We were actually one of the beta customers that moved on there. And more recently, in March of this year, we moved our remaining infrastructure, our send mail email routing infrastructure and mail relays onto Office 365 and retired those servers to a nice cost savings as well. A little more about our environment. We have over 6,000 students, 3,000 faculty and staff, 36,000 alumni mailboxes, and that kind of brings us to a total of over 56,000 mailboxes. Of those, around 11,000 are active, logging in, sending and receiving emails. We do have a large population that's forwarding, that's that alumni population. So we have a pretty large attack surface, and in our legacy configuration, we actually allowed people to create unlimited aliases. So we have some accounts with as many as 50 proxy addresses on them. So we have well over probably 100,000, 200,000 email addresses, very large attack surface. And on average, we're receiving about 350,000 messages per day, often spiking up to 500,000, 600,000. And we had a lot of challenges with that legacy email system. One of the reasons that we actually moved on to Office 365 and ultimately retired our legacy routing infrastructure. So we had a lot of issues with phish credentials causing impact to that sending infrastructure. And even after cleaning up those phish credentials, we had issues with the reputation of the IP addresses, and we weren't able to deliver our own legitimate business emails. And we're really starting to see a lot of sophisticated attacks targeted at Dartmouth, a lot of branded attacks purporting to be from Dartmouth, purporting to be from our president. And that really led into a kind of an increase in targeted spear phishing attacks, very specific attacks targeted at users in our provost office asking for an invoice to be approved. You've probably all seen similar attacks in your organization as well. And we really didn't have a whole lot of options for blocking URLs. So we were relying on kind of the age-old block it in the firewall, block it at the application firewall. That really didn't give us a lot of the granularity that we needed, specifically with HTTPS protected sites. We couldn't carve out that single Google form from the rest of Google Forms. So we had often cases where we could not protect our on-premises users. And then we actually have a large population of users off-premises, students studying abroad, faculty doing research projects overseas, and we just couldn't help them with our edge devices. So ultimately, we decided to roll out ATP. We realized that we just did not have the protection against zero-day attacks. And right around the time that WannaCry, WannaCrypt, whatever you want to call it, was out, we realized that we really had a vulnerability of variants started to come out. So we started a small ATP pilot just in my group alone in July of 2016. And then we actually moved that on to the rest of IT in September of 2016. And then after a lot of wrangling internally, a lot of documentation, we ended up rolling out safe links and safe attachments to all of Dartmouth. Pretty significant task. So immediately we began blocking things that we hadn't seen before. And in one case, I would say I had seen it before. A user had reported a message to us, and I did a little bit of analysis on that. I spun up a Hyper-V VM, blocked it from the network, opened the attachment, did a little bit of looking at it. In the end, it took me about a half hour or more to just get, a high-level overview of what that attack looked like. We've seen attacks like that more and more. In fact, ever since we turned this on in July, and we haven't had it on for that long, we've seen 378 very sophisticated attacks. Word documents, PDFs with URLs, things that we'd never catch with just antivirus alone. And we've actually blocked 236 URLs since July as well. What we really like is the level of detail that we're getting out of ATP. So I did that analysis. It took me a half hour. ATP is often doing this in minutes and providing an unprecedented level of detail and is allowing us to go and look at other users and see other users that have been targeted by that attack. So that deep analysis is really getting us a view into how our users are being attacked. And as threats evolve, which we all see, we wouldn't be here today if spam and phishing was easy. That probably would have been solved long ago. Unfortunately, it's an ever-evolving landscape. And what excites us about ATP is there's clearly a significant investment going on here. We see that protection is being improved. As new variants come out, ATP is pivoting to respond to that. So that really excites me when we see some of the features that are coming out. We're catching a lot today. We're starting to catch even more as these new features are being rolled out. So these are two samples from our environment. So, we get the dog and pony show from Microsoft. If you've enabled ATP, you've probably seen samples come into your environment as well. If you haven't enabled ATP, the proof is in the pudding. We're actually seeing this stuff get blocked. These are two samples from our live environment. I've actually redacted some of the information as well. The analysis is happening. It is catching stuff. And when I gave you the number of 378 emails, you think, well, you're receiving 350,000 emails a day. 378 is such a small number. That's actually why I think that is so impressive. They're finding the needle in the haystack, essentially. So these are emails that we never would have caught before. I've received one report from one user, and that's why I investigated it. So the fact that they're catching this needle in the haystack is really impressive to me. So the level of analysis, I think, is really interesting as well. So here you have a Word document that attempted to open an LNK. That's actually the sample I looked at, and download a malicious file onto the computer and execute it. Or on the other hand, an HTML file that was used to phish credentials. Just having that information, all within 2 minutes and 57 seconds, or 1 minute and 12 seconds, is really awesome. And that's being done at scale as well. So I checked one message, big deal. We get 350,000 messages a day. And at that speed, that's pretty impressive. So over to Abhishek.
We'll throw it back over to Abhishek to
Right,
close
thanks,
this
Doug.
out.
Let's a big hand of applause for Doug. All right, so we have about 10 minutes left, and let me kind of just close it up. So I started with this slide in the beginning, and if you add all the features that Ross talked about, this becomes a pretty dense set of capabilities across what we can do in mail flow detection, post-delivery protection, and ability to respond across post-delivery. So all these features will be rolling out, as you'll see, in the next few weeks. to the next few months. And we hope we have shown you how we are using the intelligence, the signal, and our integration across the client and services to give you end-to-end protection across Phish, across ATP, EOP, and other products that's available in the Office 365 E5 family. We have about 10 minutes left, so we'll be happy to take questions. These are some of the other sessions that were covering ATP and TI, Threat Explorer, and other products in detail. So these are all recorded, so you should be able to go back to the Ignite site and review them at your in your off time. With that, we'll open it up to the audience for questions.
Yeah, if you're interested in being able to lower that ETR so that you can, for ATP messages, you want to put that ETR in place. It's effectively a header with a threshold. You can email me, ross.adams@microsoft.com, and I'll happily forward you the information through.
Yeah, well, any of these features like the domain protection, the example that you used up here where you don't really need a sandbox, you're not detonating anything, or the user name protection, be available in just EOP, or will you need to have the ATP solution for this?
So all the features that we talked about, these, as Ross mentioned, we're using a lot of intelligence to kind of build a graph and understand, what kind of protection you need. So currently, these are planned for the ATP SKU of, and obviously E5 SKU of the product.
Okay. We're gonna add an extra piece of information.
Sorry, guys, I just want to chime in. One of the things you should recognize is anytime there is a catch out of ATP, it is actually accruing value towards EOP. So anytime we find an attachment, or we find a piece of email, or we find a piece of URL that is bad, we will actually apply the learnings from that to our entire corpus of tenants, so they get the value protection as well. While the first instance of that may have been caught through an ATP customer's instance or through our ATP analysis, the findings of that, once we know that it's bad, applies to every customer in our customer.
Yeah, so this is just adding to what Girish was saying there. Girish is our boss, by the way, just so you know. When I was talking about earlier about the reputation data, that reputation store being able to come through, this is being able to feed into that store and then apply that holistically across the platform, right? So as we find malicious content, we can get rid of it for all customers. But as Girish said, we may find it first in detonation, right? So we all get, from an ATP perspective, zero-day type activities, or zero-hour activities, if you will happen within that detonation chamber, where it may be delivered, might take us a bit of time to cluster on it before we can actually apply it for EOP, or if it's not being delivered to an ATP user. So ATP is going to give you the highest level of value there, but as Girish said, we take that value, it updates that reputational data, and then we block universally. Let's go for it.
Is the Report Phish add-in an Outlook add-in?
The Report Phish add-in, or report, it's called Report Message add-in. It allows you to report both spam, spam, phish, and the fact that it's not junk. So it covers all three. When you add it adds in automatically into Outlook and OA. So it covers both of those platforms today.
And eventually, it will be extended to the mobile client as well.
Correct. Yeah.
So I actually have a piece of feedback on that. Probably a lot of people also, besides me, we use phish testing services already. Ours happens to have a plugin for that. One of the reasons we use that is beyond it reporting it to us, it also gives the end user instant feedback that it was a phishing test to give positive reinforcement, but to also keep us from getting those reports. So if there's a way that you can, and of course those are using transport rules to know, to let it through. And if you guys could link that in, so we could say here's where we expect to get our phish testing, and then if something comes through and it does get reported, to let those people know and to not send it to us, because we would like to get a copy of those messages as well.
It's good feedback. In fact, I didn't mention it. One other thing we do with this data is we do actually look at it and say, hey, people are reporting spam or people are reporting phish, and you're allowing it into the organization. So this is a means of being able to sort of give you configuration drift. So as users report phish, we look at it and say, hey, there's a transport rule that set this to SCL to -1. We'll tell you, hey, people are reporting phish and you're letting it in, right? So this is where you potentially see a false positive in an alert. So it's good feedback for us.
Yeah, because it's good having a graph too, because I have to say our organization is actually pretty good at submitting phishing emails to us.
Good.
I mean, in some ways we have they submit spam and we have to kind of go back and tell them not to do that. I'd rather have that problem. So,
Yeah, it's as long as they're reporting it as something, it's better than sort of clicking on the links, definitely.
First of all, that was an excellent question because I'm in the same situation using another party's report tool. My question is related to that too. Can IT get a copy of that mail? Because we've trained our users we respond back to them and say, hey, yeah, you're right. Like whether the tool does it, so if it's a phish test, but if they report it legitimate, we look at it for them.
Yeah, no, you can definitely do that. You can definitely get a copy of those messages. There's two ways to do that. We'll give you the ability to actually download the message to see what it looks like. We can also create an ETR. Effectively when the user reports it, it flows out the system. It's an email back to us. You can get a copy of that sent off as well, so you can see what they reported. The advantage of this is that it formats the message in the right way, so that when it comes into the system, we're actually able to automatically process it. Right, so we can figure out whether it's something we know about, something that we need to look at. Is it because of a misconfiguration, etc.
Another question? Go ahead.
The question mark that you're rolling out in OWA, is there a timeline for that in the Outlook?
Yes,
rich
we are
client?
actively working with the Outlook desktop team as well. So no timelines to announce at this point, but yes, both. Once it's rolled out in OWA, the same code will show up in Outlook as well.
There was one thing I didn't mention that's also going to come through with that is the ability to say via. So this message came via this user. It's a good way of actually indicating, hey, in that instance, that particular message would come through and say, this is from HR, but it was via Ross at Microsoft.
So in that envelope and like those other properties that the user's not seeing.
Correct.
So can I just add to that?
Sure, go ahead.
Sorry, guys, but my question was, out of what you showed us there, what is only the case when the mailbox is online, and as opposed to just passing through EOP?
It's a good question. So if you have an on-prem mailbox, what sort of protection do you get? Some of this is actually built into the client, and then we're actually adding particular MAPI properties into the service so that it arrives in there. So there's a possibility it might come through for on-prem. We'll have to double check and see what's going on. Some of the other intelligence that we're building will require a bit more work in order to handle on-prem. So it'll start with cloud, but the goal is to actually build it down, particularly the sending graph, based on mail flow that we see in the service, to be able to deal with it in that case.
Okay, great. So if we're going through a migration, we might have different communications for different...
You might have slightly different experiences until you get everybody on the same platform, but it's a good thing for us to follow up. Let's go to
the gentleman on the back.
I have a question about detonation. Currently, we're using another service, and we're considering moving to ATP. One thing that's been very incites rage amongst our clients is that detonation takes forever. They get an email, and their Word document that they were expecting takes a half an hour to get there. How long is it within ATP?
So if you happen to watch Jason's session, he kind of gave a detailed explanation of that.
Well, let's Jason's making his way to a mic. He's going to give us the lowdown rather than me tell you.
Hi, how you doing? I'm Jason Rogers. So right now we're seeing average time. So for a mail, it actually goes into our detonation chamber. We're seeing average delivery times of 1 minute, and our 99 percentile time, less than 3 minutes. But we also have dynamic email delivery, which will allow you to view the body of the message and also preview the attachments in our web viewers immediately while we complete the detonation. So there should be almost no latency impact.
Yeah. Excellent, thank you.
Go to the gentleman in the middle, yeah.
Yes, so most of our users are using mobile app and OWA for their mail client. Is the reporting capability going to be added to those?
Yes, the report message add-in is live today for Outlook Web Access. So you can use it today and download it through the store, and it will be on for Outlook Web Access. The mobile integration is coming soon.
And also the hover capability for the safe links is not really useful in those environments?
Yeah, safe links is on for any client, doesn't matter.
But the ability to hover and get the information, that'll be likely come first in the OWA client and then make its way out from there.
Okay.
First question I had was, how do you handle, say, like bulk or marketing mail? Is there a way that you can like determine that to be, say, like low priority and put that into a separate envelope?
Yeah, as Ross mentioned, we have an edge system up front as part of our protection, and then we use a whole bunch of first-party, third-party signals to determine what is known as bulk mail. And you can, of course, configure a PCL score as part of your spam policy today to decide what is legitimate and be able to filter that out. I would also like to add that if you're on the latest Outlook clients or the latest, there's a new feature known as Focus Inbox that's been specifically designed to essentially handle, unwanted mail, if you will. So make sure you only get focus mail into your focus inbox, but any marketing material lands into your other mailbox so that your end users have a much better experience.
Okay. And then just one question around the detonation time. Is it a function of the type of file? Because typically our users get a lot of models that might come in that are fairly complex. So would files like that tend to take a little bit longer? Or?
Let's let Jason answer that one as well.
So it actually doesn't have that much to do with the file itself. Occasionally has a little bit to do with type, but really what drives towards more towards the 3-minute side and further away from the 1-minute side is typically if you have a lot of files. So if you've got a zip file that contains 150 other files, we're going to spin up separate VMs for every file within that zip, and we have to aggregate the results from all those detonations. So that's going to end up taking a little bit more time just because of the increased overhead.
Go to the gentleman.
But file size and file type doesn't really.
Okay.
Perfect. Gentleman in the back there.
Thank you. I was wondering, do you safe link the URLs within a PDF?
So it's a good question. We don't actually, we don't own the capability to rewrite a PDF, okay? So what we actually do with it during detonation is we extract all those URLs and we compare them at that point in time. So it's, it's not possible for us to modify that PDF. That's why we integrate, and it's similar for Word and Word, PowerPoint, Excel, those sorts of documents. We can't modify those documents. That would physically change the content of them. That's why we've gone with an API approach for those particular clients. But for PDFs, extracted and checked at mail flow time.
Thank you.
Go here and then go to the back.
So we've had some targeted attacks at the CEO, CFO, and things like that that are pretty sophisticated. So I was interested to hear more about the changes there that you were talking about with declaring who that is, and would that go to other high-value targets in the organization, or just the CEO? Quick answer, and then we can talk a little bit more offline. The short answer is you give us a list of people you care about. We also, because we have the intelligence to build the graph, your CEO who talks to people, from the board of directors, etc., they're protected because we know who they talk to, right? So the idea being that if I can protect your circle and I can protect certain individuals, I can give you pretty good coverage across the people you talk to and the people that, if I'm spear phishing, I'm going to want to try and be, right? I'm going to try and want to be your boss. I'm going to try and be a colleague. I'm going to try and be somebody who's closely related to you. I go to LinkedIn, I find out who is who, then I send the information. So we can talk a little bit more, but I'm just conscious of the fact that we're over our time here, but and we have a few others. So shoot to the back. But we hang around and we'll chat some more.
Thanks, Ross. I'll try to be quick. So it'd be good to set some expectations around the report message add-in. A quick story. We were seeing some malware get through ATP, EOP. We decided, well, let's use this report phishing malware. Took 6 days before it started to get picked up. Called support about it, and they said, well, if it's important, use this different process for reporting malware because the report message goes to a completely different group, we have different SLAs. It'd be great organizationally if you guys got all that tied together so we had one way to do the reporting instead of multiple ways.
Yeah, that's good feedback. We should probably talk a little bit offline and just see exactly what your experience was.
Investigate what happened in your case.
Sure, absolutely.
That shouldn't be the normal operation, obviously.
Yes, sir.
One question from my side. You speak about a little bit DMARC. Question from my side. Has Microsoft in the backend a plug-in to handle the DMARC reports? The question is, other security companies like Proofpoint comes to us, hey, we have a backend to handle the DMARC reports. put it together with information like other malware, spammer, and
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, so today we do not report, we don't send out reports. We did.
Sorry, are you asking about ability to, is the question, does Microsoft send out DMARC reports, or is the question that do we allow you to view all your DMARC failure reports in a console? Is the question about your domain?
if I send an email to the recipient, then
if it fails, you want to report back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we don't actually send DMARC reports today. So in the case where you send a message, DMARC fails, or it's going to be rejected, you have a reject record or a notify record, and you want us to send it out, we don't send that today. Now, there's a reason we don't send it today is because we generate so many of them, we would probably melt many systems. But it's not something that we send today.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Hope this was a valuable session.
Enjoy the party.
Have a great Ignite and enjoy the party. And we'll still hang around here if you have more questions.